If you could survive my English version of my first video, probably you are ready for the second one. The answer I would give you now and we share with you is the same answer that people ask me when I was young, and then now that I'm older and I have two sons, and my two sons grow up and now they are quite independent in their way of thinking, and they developed a good capacity of criticism. The question is still the same. Why, Daddy, if they are my sons who ask me, you write this kind of music? It means, why, Jacopo, do you write this kind of music without a rhythm, without melody, without harmony, and so on? And to give an answer to this question, it's not that easy, because I have to introduce a term that I'm not even sure that in English it's the same one. It's filiations. It means where do you come from, or where do you want to come from. And as you cannot change the family where you are born, you can define your destiny. An artist when you decide to be an artist, you should define where you feel that you should come from, or you could come from. In this sense, I was born in 1971 in Milan. I lived in the neighborhood around Milan, and the music that was played at that time was the so-called Italian popular music. A lot of American music came there, of course, but mainly it was the Italian popular music that was performed on the TV, on the radio. And in my family, sometimes my parents was used to listen ancient music, like Mozart music, Beethoven music, and sometimes the early 20th century music, like Debussy, Ravel, Prokofiev. And since the very beginning, I felt a deeper attraction, since when I was very young, a deeper attraction to this music, the ancient music, than the so-called Italian popular music or American popular music or whatever. Or sometimes we have some French popular music coming in, like Edith Piaf, like Aznavour, okay? To give you some examples of the music that in the normal Italian society was played. And so you could say, okay, Jacopo, if you like Mozart music, Beethoven music, why don't you write the music following the same steps, following the same criteria? But the answer is that I was not interested exactly in that music, but I was more interested in how those composers found out the solutions to some systemic problems. How to compose that melody, and how that melody can work in that period of the history of music. How can we compose this gender of music, and how it works in that part of the history of music. So the filiation was not in that style or in that aesthetics, but my filiation in why I compose my kind of music, it was to follow the kind of research that much time before me, much longer before me, people was looking for. Of course, when we think about Mozart, Beethoven and so on, we think that they are the best of that period. There was not only Mozart at the time, there were a lot of composers at the time, and a lot of those composers probably did not find several solutions that history kept in the filter that historicity is. And so I don't know if one day I can produce a music that can be easy to listen to, easy to explain to our friends or to your friends, so less embarrassing. But to give you a specific answer why I write this kind of music with this shape, is that mainly I work on prototypes, And I think that also in the broken English word, prototypes should be known, probably when you think about cars. A prototype is, if we think about a car, is something that is fragile, that has a sort of new definition about what we already know. And this prototype, or any prototype, tries to do something new concerning the level of notions, the size of the knowledge we have in a specific moment of a specific period of time. So what I do is exactly this. I create prototypes with one goal, or the same goal, that is to try to define new archetypes. Wow, that's heavy in English. It means that if a prototype is something fragile, my hope is to arrive in a moment that something fragile and new at the same time. My goal and my idea is that how to do something new and fragile, and how to make it stronger, stable. Okay, in a way, how to make a stereotypes, something that is very easy to reproduce, something that can be even useful. I'm not sure that it is possible with my music, but let's imagine, okay, that could be useful. When you pass from a prototype to a stereotypes, it means that somewhere, even if you don't think about it, an archetype has been produced in the society, in the so-called collective intelligence or connective intelligence. So I focus since when I was a child in this specific situation. How to produce prototypes in order to one day probably to arrive to some stereotypes, but my goal is to create the archetypes that we need, or at least I need. As the origin of my inspiration is people, the other, okay? And the other in a psychoanalyst vision is called the barbarian. You know, probably the barbarian is not the wild people that destroyed the Roman Empire. The barbarian is the other. You are the barbarian and I am your barbarian. Till when we know each other and till when we start communicating, and because we know each other and we communicate, we probably can make an articulation, and then we become friends, we become lovers, we become a community, we become a people, a nation, okay, a country. So I find my own inspiration in the others, and every others is different, and I am different than you, and in this difference I find the best source of inspiration. And for myself, there are people who find his inspiration in front of painting, in the nature, walking in the street. I don't care. I mean, for myself, I find the inspiration in other people. This is one of the reasons why I write on bodies, but probably we will see it in another video. And as I do not want to make any polemics, but only to give some possible issue to this moment, I think that the knowledge of filiations, where do we come from, is extremely important nowadays, comparing and in this very period where mondialization and globalization has taken place. So as for me, the others are the main place of inspiration, and knowing the others allows me to know better myself and vice versa. No one is equal to another one. That's why I cannot reproduce the music of the past. I don't want to reproduce something that I already know. And mainly the music of the past, where you can find melodies, you can find specific rhythms, you can find specific things, does not belong to me. What belongs to me nowadays too is the idea of searching something new. And mainly people who ask me why I write this kind of music, but in this, why do you write this kind of music? When they listen to the music of the past, simply they think that because they can recognize a melody as a melody, or they can recognize, I don't know, a style, or they can recognize a variation of a melody, or they can recognize a rhythmical pattern, they believe that they understand the music. And sometimes they even say, wow, this music is orgasmic, just because they recognize something. Remember that when you recognize something, it means that you already know. It means that the barbarian is not anymore a barbarian. It means that when you recognize something, you have already all the knowledge about what this something is. And it's not my case. I don't want to do something already done, or the sort of new imitation of something from the past. So the first part of my answer is I write this kind of music because I'm more interested in how, before me, people solved some problem that are still active in my mind, more than the solution of the problem. Probably, I don't know if you know the period of historical period of music, ancient music, called ars subtilior. In English, probably you say ars subtilior. It's a joke, of course, because of my accent. You should listen to that music. You should even listen more ancient music, even much more before Bach music. And you can see that the notion of to be nice, because in the question, why do you write this kind of music? Not nice enough to be shareable, easy shareable. So if you listen a little more ancient music, you will see that the notion of be nice, in the ars subtilior music, to be nice does not exist. It's a music hard to listen to. It's difficult. It asks for concentration. Sometimes you need to study it if you are ready to understand what it's played and also how to play. So this was for the first part. The second part of the answer is I want to focus about the notion of filiation. Where do you come from? I was born Jacopo Baboni in 1971. When I was 12, there were no computer, no informatics, so everything was written by hand. I asked to my parents that they wanted to become Jacopo Baboni Schilingi. Baboni is the family name of my father, Schilingi is the family name of my mother. And because from my family name, from my mother's family name, Schilingi was a line of musicians coming from Austria, and I wanted to show up that I am a musician, so I asked to change it. It was a very strong action. First, I have to fight with my parents to do it because it was expensive. Secondly, as it was totally handwritten, I insist, handwritten, we have to pay a lawyer. I don't know the English word of notaire, sorry, I don't know. It's something with a different function something concerning the law, in any case, who can make this kind of procedure, and my documents pass from Milan to Rome to the bureau of the President of the Republic of Italy. Not the president himself, but the same office who could make an attestation that Jacopo Baboni becomes Jacopo Baboni Schilingi. Then this document comes back to Milan, and one day when I was between my 14 years old and 15, I became Jacopo Baboni Schilingi. It was funny because at the time I was at the high school, all the teachers has a sort of official book in the school where they wrote every date, who was present, who was absent, who was justified, the note, the quotation A, B, and so on. And they have to rewrite everything because I changed the name, and you couldn't just replace my name. You have to rewrite all the registers. Another example of, because why I give you this example, first because you can check it, and secondly because it's concrete, and third because it shows you that my decisions of doing this kind of music is something very deep inside myself. I changed my family name because I wanted to show that I wanted to do this kind of music. And the second example is when I was 21 years old, sorry, I came to France, now where I am, and Europe was not there. It means there was the borders, there was different not coins, sorry, different money, sorry, I don't know the English word. There was in Italy the lire and in France the franc, and we refers all the time to the US dollar, okay? So we have to change the money, we have to come in France with the passport. I have a sort of document like a ESTA nowadays to stay in France to study. And when the Europe became Europe, there was a common money, the euro, and mainly you could move between Italy, Germany, France, Spain without any document, because like in the US, you can work in France if you are Italian without no permission, because you can move all around each country. And after a while, I decided to become French. That's strange. It means, no, it's nothing strange. You probably don't know, but for 20 years we have very, I don't know what to say. I mean, no polemics, I said so, no polemics. For 20 years, the cultural politics about creation art, it means new creation in the field of art, was for me extremely bad. And I decided to make a difference, a differentiation from this part of Italy that I didn't want to belong anymore, and I asked to the French government to become French. So I passed through the immigration ministry as an Italian belonging to Europe. It is like somebody who is in Florida and he asked to the state of New York to change the state. You cannot, I mean, I think you cannot in the USA because the passport is the same. But I changed the passport. So now I have two nationalities. I'm Italian and French, because I wanted to define where do I come from. And an artist can define his origin, filiation, or filiation, sorry if it is doesn't exist in English, only after that the fact it is. I mean, I was born and then I decided to add the name of my mother. I came in French and then after I decided to become French. I listened to many different music, and then after I decided to do the music I do. As I want to give you some, not hopes, but some hypotheses, some possible issue to this situation of confinement, I don't know how to say in English, the fact that we are stuck in our houses because of many, many reasons. I think that nowadays this notion of where do we come from, it is extremely important when we compare, mainly for young people, when we compare ourselves to the mondialization and the globalization. I remember that when I do my first concert in China, it was in 2003 in Beijing, and I could listen to Chinese contemporary music that was completely different than from the music I could listen in 2001 in Mexico or in South America, like Santiago del Chile or Buenos Aires. And making a concert in Buenos Aires made me meet people different than from Europe and from Asia. And a concert done in Beijing in that period meant something strong to me. The difference, the notion of the others, that is the barbarian, the one I still do not know, inspired me a lot. Can I know other people? Can I create something with these other people? Can make an articulation of thoughts, of philosophy, of myths? When you are interested in systemic way of communication, like as I am, to meet somebody really different is a gift. And I'm could do concert for 13 years in China from 2003 till 2016, almost every year. And sometimes I did many concerts during the same year. And I could see the difference between China in 2000, before the Olympic Games in 2008, mainly before the normal people in China speak English, and after. So I've seen China when it was extremely closed, open in China, and the China we know nowadays. And I could see the same kind of changing in Europe, in North America, in South America, in Japan, and so on. It means that if I listen, and if I go to a concert in Tokyo now and I close my eyes, and I listen to a concert in Harvard University and I close my eyes, and I listen to a concert in Santiago de Chile and I close my eyes, I could not tell you where I am. No specificities. It is like if we made a huge average about any kind of differentiations between people, between how we can say paradigms of thinking the music and of thinking the world, and in this common average, it is hard to define the differentiations between you, me, and the others. I think this is a loss of something. And my wish for young composers, is that I would like to go again in Beijing and listen to a music where I can find a new, where do I come from, a new filiation. If I go back to Rome to listen again to where do I come from, a new filiation. I really invite you, young composers, young artists, to define your filiations. Your filiations cannot be a technology. Cannot be. If it is a technology, you have really a short life because technology is extremely short life length. So my hope is to have given you some examples of why I do write this kind of music. Because this kind of music is the reflection of what I am as an artist.